Season 3.5 brought a bunch of changes to the game that shifted up the meta, especially for supports. My name is Paz, an Eternity player on the competitive ladder, and this is my tier list for the new season so you know who to play to rank up fast. I do want to preface that this is a list for most ranks, but it is weighed a little bit more for the higher level players, since the higher you go, the more the hero that you play actually means something. You can climb to the top 1% of players in this game, pretty much playing whatever you want, if I'm going to be completely honest. But the characters higher on the list are the ones that are far more consistent and will get you there faster if you learn them. If you want to see the full list week to week, I do update it in my Discord where we can get the whole list without all the yaps. So if that's all you really care about, save your time and just go to the Discord and just turn off notifications even if you want. Just have that open for yourself. But if you want more of these tier list videos, you boys gotta eat. So watching through is appreciated, and I do really appreciate all of the support in any form that you guys can give. Before we move on with the entirety of the list, we have the suggested picks and bans for season 3.5 being Emma, Johnny, Wolverine, and then Luna Snow as the clutch final ban pick. Emma Frost is simply the best character in the game. She still builds charge insanely quickly and can melt squishies in 2 seconds when she gets to max charge. She has hard crowd controlling abilities that can cancel ultimates with diamond form, and she also has an ultimate capable of stopping support ultimates before they even get to use them. If Emma is open, you have to play her. There is no way around it. She shuts down way too many heroes not to run her, at least in ranked. Human Torch is very similar because he doesn't really need to commit for any of his damage. In order to sever enemies from each other, the flame walls are all that he really needs to put up, and then he is getting free value just by existing. Not to mention the team up he gets with Susan Storm gives him 400 health to do really whatever he wants. Also, he has one of the strongest DPS ultimates in the game, and when DPS has this much area denial, flying, and just raw damage output, it's just going to be straight up insane and make you pretty much just have to play Johnny whenever you can. With Emma constantly banned, Wolverine is also a really good ban because he counters a lot of the tanks that are next in line. Think characters like Groot, Doctor Strange, Hulk. You get what I'm getting at here. I'm not sure how I feel about the Wolverine ban quite yet, and I still think there are sometimes better options in ranks depending on what you have on your team, but not having tanks that can take space in the higher levels of play is pretty bad, I can't lie. It's just for most players, Wolverine, having him go through the ban phase isn't necessarily the end of the world. And finally, Luna Snow has been a war criminal from the start of the game's release, and that only continues to get her buffed for some reason. I don't know why, but the thing is that she has a 12-second ult that is just way too long. She does way too much damage for being a support character, and now she has a team up with Adam that pretty much just makes her immortal if you've ever played it. When will we catch up as a community and just ban this character, especially when you don't have a Luna player on your team? Seriously, guys, I'm telling you, Luna Snow is a very good ban, and no matter what elo you're in, because so many people are playing her and don't know how to play anyone else. All right, but let's start off the full list with the D tier, and we have characters that I would rather not see on my team because there are vastly better options in almost every single scenario. These characters include Jeff the Shark, Moon Knight, Scarlet Witch, and Thor. Now, starting off with Jeff, I know that he can be extremely, and I'm talking very good in triple support compositions with his speed boost off of the bubbles and his incredible ultimate when it's used in the right situations. I mean, to be honest, if you want to see the entire value that he actually can generate with his team, just watch some recent MRI games from China. The problem is, we're talking about ranked right now, guys. Rarely are you going to get 3 supports every single time that you lock Jeff. And the other thing is too, most Jeff players don't know what actually makes Jeff a character as a character stand out, and they just kind of autopilot and heal in the back line, and they never use the bubbles to speed people in. And because of this, I would rather just not see him on my team and have another support ultimate. Don't get me wrong, sometimes he can be good, but more often than not, you're just not happy if you have a Jeff the Shark player on your team. The next 2 characters in the D tier, Moon Knight and Scarlet Witch, are just not the great DPS in the game right now. As for both of these characters, they aren't the worst ever, but so many characters do what they do better that it feels kind of pointless to play them, and it feels really bad when you do try to play them. Scarlet Witch without a Strange is really, really bad, and with a Strange, it still really isn't all that much better than a Punisher for being not that much easier either. Moon Knight struggles too from low mobility, and Phoenix, who is arguably one of the strongest DPS in the game right now, and she pretty much just does what Moon Knight does better. I'm talking ultimate, I'm talking mobility in the kit, I'm talking stun in the kit, I'm talking just damage in general with the primary fire. There's so much that Phoenix just beats Moon Knight that his entire identity just feels like it was ripped away, and I'd rather see literally any DPS on my team. I'm gonna be so real with you guys. Finally, the tank that we have in D tier is gonna be Thor, and you know, even though he did get some really good buffs, he's still just not that good. I'm gonna be honest, there's just so many better options over him. He leaves so much to be desired out of the tank role, and when the tank role has such heavy hitters, it's like, why would I ever pick this guy up? I really do wish that Thor wasn't a throw pick because he's a really cool character, but when you see what is in the S and the A tier compared to what is in the D tier, you kind of understand why Thor is getting such a bad reputation on this channel. Moving on to the C tier, we have the characters that can sometimes be decent in very rare scenarios, but still at the very least are playable, and I won't crash out if I see them on my team if at the start of a game. I'm still gonna let people try to play these characters. Starting with the tanks in C tier, we have Peni Parker and Venom, who are honestly kind of mid at best. I know Peni can be really difficult to deal with in lower elos, but the moment you step into a lobby with a DPS or a flying character that actually knows how to path around the map and destroy your nests, it makes Peni feel really bad. Notice that she isn't D tier with Thor because she does have some maps where it is harder to deal with nests than others, but there are also a lot of other maps that are completely useless to run Peni into the DPS that are strong right now. The problem with Venom in ranked is that he requires the team to be able to follow up on the dive when he goes in or combo with his ultimates, both of which are skills that most teams in ranked do not have, even in Eternity. Captain America, that we'll talk about soon, is usually the better ranked tank option for dive since he has a very easy time getting in and out frequently, where Venom has one engage where he has to make it count, and then he has a ton of downtime thereafter. Moving along to the DPS in C tier, Squirrel Girl is pretty interesting because she does play really well into triple tank compositions, but the problem is no one is even playing tank right now in ranked for some reason, so why would I play Squirrel Girl? The other problem is that she has a really bad matchup into characters that are really good right now, namely Hela, Phoenix, Namor, really a lot of characters she's just not doing too well into. Squirrel Girl isn't always awful, but she also isn't really all that good, and most of the time, Punisher is a better play since he's more consistent and does the same job. Blade and Mr. Fantastic also suffer from pretty similar issues as each other, which is why they're finding themselves in the C tier. They both don't do a ton of damage. They have ultimates that are quite frankly kind of mid, but they do stick around for a while in the fight and they never really die. Because of this, I do believe they are nice to play in lower elos, but the further you go up, the more that you're going to be wishing that these players were playing literally anything else to get more value elsewhere. They aren't always the worst, and if you do have solid damage alongside them like a Bucky or a Punisher, they really aren't that bad, but they definitely leave a lot more to be desired. Closing out the C tier for DPS, we have Iron Fist, Magic, and Spider-Man, and I'm gonna be honest guys, they're all just kind of bad. Iron Fist tickles the enemies, and while he can heal with his team up now with the Luna, I just don't know why I would be playing Iron Fist over a Psylocke or a BP if I want dive. The same problem is also found on Magic and Spider-Man. There are just other divers that get more done right now. Plus, they are just harder to play than those meta heroes too, which doesn't make sense why Magic still is in the state that she's in, but here we are. There is a recurring theme though with these heroes. While they might be absolutely horrible in C tier, people still love to play them because they are actually fun. It kind of sucks that it works like that, but fun doesn't always mean strong in Marvel Rivals, as terrible as that sounds. But moving on to B tier, we have characters that are passable on their own or are absolutely insane with the right team alongside them. So naturally, this tier is chock full of damage characters. Iron Man is super counterable and is the weakest he's honestly ever been throughout the entire history of Marvel Rivals, especially since all of his counters are extremely strong right now. The problem problem is, most of the time in ranked, even people that play counters don't stop a good Iron Man from taking control of the entire game. At the end of the day, Iron Man has an ultimate that can consistently eliminate support ultimates from the game if the enemy team is not playing smart. It's no wonder why I had a 98% win rate in my bronze to GM with him, only dropping a single game. Any character that can take supports out of ult is going to be absolutely insane in ranked. Simple, it's just the higher you go, the better job enemies are going to be at countering you, countering their support ultimates. Now, some of you might think I'm crazy for putting Widow in B tier, but if she gets a Mantis damage boost, she is absolutely nutty in the right hands. And now that Mantis is significantly better than she has been, the odds that you were actually going to get that damage boost are pretty high now. Also, she arguably has the best mobility out of any hit scan character in the game right now, with a very self-sufficient kit. That being said, without a damage boost, she still isn't horrible with the Punisher, but she isn't exactly great. She is definitely a slept-on character, but I have a very hard time putting her much higher than all of the other characters that are in this list. Hawkeye is nicer than Widow if you don't have a damage boost, and he has the capability of taking out supports out of their ultimates. The main problem is that if he finds himself in a 1v1 duel, he will lose if he does not hit that first headshot, since he doesn't have the kit that Black Widow has that can kick someone, jump away, kick them again, headshot. She has a lot more options in those 1v1 duels. For this, he is more consistent because he doesn't need someone else like Mantis to damage boost him, but he does have a lot less potential in total. While Star-Lord did get some pretty crazy buffs going into season 3, there just isn't enough for him to really make him better or higher on the tier list, since Phoenix does everything he does, but even better. I do want to highlight something though. When season 4 does come around and the right characters get nerfed, we're praying that they do, Star-Lord is going to become a serious threat in the right hands. The extra 25 health he is getting from barrel roll does go a long way, just not long enough for you to roll around enemy Phoenixes or Hellas in 1v1s because they just do too much damage, or their Phoenix who just gets health for proccing marks, which, you know, why? All right, but enough complaining about Phoenix. Let's move on to more DPS in this tier. We got Storm and Bucky, who are incredibly solid characters for ranked. They just aren't quite the best when you start moving into the higher ranks in the game. The mobility at the top level is enough to make Storm unsafe, and Bucky lack pick potential from an off angle. I do think these characters enable Blade if you have a person that is dead set on playing the new character, but still, there are a lot of better options. Just like Star-Lord, I really do believe that season 4 might be the season for a lot of the characters in this tier, especially Storm and Bucky, but we're gonna have to see when season 4 comes around in a month. And as much as I hate to put Panther this high on the list, he seriously dunks on bad support players in ladder. And guys, let's get so real right now. There are a lot of really bad support players on ladder, and you know what? I'm one of them. And honestly, I ban Panther sometimes too, so that I don't have to worry about my other support dying, because I know they're just gonna die to him, even though he got giga nerfed at the start of this season. To be honest, the only thing that you really have to do against a Black Panther is locate him before he dives in, but I swear people act like he doesn't even exist until he's already on top of him and they just fall over. It's honestly really sad, and for a support to have that little awareness, maybe we gotta play a different role, or maybe we gotta play a different game. The real problem and why he isn't higher is that all that it takes to counter a Black Panther, it isn't even awareness, although that's really all it should take. If you're really struggling that hard, you just go Ultron triple support and all of a sudden, poof, all my problems go away and he can't do anything and he has to switch. Similar counters are easy with Namor, Hulk, and Thing, and tons of other characters in higher tiers. And I'm not complaining anymore if I have a BP, but I'm definitely not jumping with joy. I'm just locked in, so I'm putting the Black Panther at the B tier, which does feel a little bit too high for me, but you know what? What he does to people that don't know what to do, which happens a lot in ranked, it's consistent enough to the point where he's a pretty solid character, all things considered. Now we have finally gotten to the A tier. We have some serious contenders in this tier with the meta, but they just aren't quite meta defining yet. Starting with the Vanguards, we have Doctor Strange, Cap, and Thing. Doctor Strange, honestly guys, is a DPS in disguise, but in higher ranks, he isn't always the best pick since the enemies can just punch through his shield if they play the right tanks. That being said, his ultimate has some of the most insane setup potential in the entire game. With the new cooldown upgrades too, he can overall just frag out harder now in low to mid elos, which is a very valuable asset to any team in in ranked. Captain America is also a very solid tank for pushing DPS off of off angles, but like I said, in higher tiers, Hulk in the S tier is going to be a better option for specifically, pressuring those off angles and making sure your supports are safe. What Captain America is better at doing is aiding in the DPS that is going to be off angling alongside with him, like Psylocke, for example, but for some reason, a lot of people aren't really playing Psylocke right now in lower elos. He also has a really good ultimate that is capable of stalling points and making up for support players that are making a lot of mistakes with their ultimates, which is a very common thing that loses you games. So having that in your back pocket as Captain America is actually pretty nice. Honestly, I would think that Captain America would probably be a little bit higher on the list if his numbers were better, or if people in ranked were more willing to change their playstyles from game to game instead of just autopiloting and walking down main. If you have someone that's going to dive with you, I think Cap is a decent pick, but it's going to have to be right next to a Magneto. Thing is also incredible when it comes to brawling out on the front line. The only problem is that he is terrible at solo tanking, and if he doesn't have a Magneto with him, he gets absolutely farmed by the meta characters right now. Hulk at least has bubbles, and the team up with Namor that makes him a top 3 tank in my opinion. The Thing, he doesn't really have that kind of option. By no means is Thing a bad character, but he isn't really as solid as the ones in S tier, and those are just a clear step ahead. Shifting our focus to the DPS in A tier, to most of your surprises, I know, it's gonna have to be Hela in A tier. Now don't get me wrong, Hela is great for ranked, since there is little to no coordination and a half decent Hela is just going to run the lobby without getting pressured. When better players are introduced to the games, however, and Psylocke is in play, her weaknesses begin to show, and Phoenix begins to shine very, very bright. Compared to Phoenix, the only thing that Hela really has is better range. Phoenix has better mobility, a better ultimate, more crowd control, and stronger damage over time. She just needs a support to damage boost her ultimate and help her get close. That's it. Punisher is also still incredible in this season in the right situations. If you can force a Magneto ban instead of an Emma ban, Punisher is arguably in the S tier for DPS, but that ban doesn't really happen as frequently, and Emma Mag is horrible to play Peni into. You need to get at least one of them off the board. But if you were up against pretty much any other tank combo in the game, Punisher becomes pretty dang strong. He melts Thing, he melts Hulk, and he also melts Strange's shield that's just gonna get blown up pretty much instantly by him. Punisher is also really good at breaking Groot walls. In the right situation, Punisher is insane, and those situations come about a lot. So he is A tier on the brink of S, but I just can't quite put him up in that S tier. As for the supports in A tier, Invisible Woman is either extremely OP or she's just kind of solid at best. If Johnny is available, get on Invis, buddy. But if not, you can still play her, but there's just better options unless Wolverine is through. It's just kind of like, she's just really weird niche support that, there's better options, but you're not throwing. I'm not complaining if I have an Invis player on my team, but there are definitely better options outside of her team up with the Fantastic Four. The aggressive supports being Mantis, Atom, and Ultron are going to close out the A tier, and you know what? I'm very happy for this because support players this season are finally eating good. Ultron is still really solid when it comes to dealing with Black Panther, who is really popular still in ranked. Atom gives Luna Snow an absolutely insane team up that makes her near immortal, and he also has the only true counter to Groot combos that are popular right now. Not to mention, his ult is nearly impossible to counter without a Phoenix ultimate. Finally, with Mantis, the strong characters like Phoenix and Punisher get so much use out of that 12% damage boost, allowing them to kill through support ultimates with ease to the point that I am surprised I didn't see Mantis sooner. If Blade ever gets a buff too, I can see the Mantis Loki team up getting played more, but that isn't the case, so that is not the reason Mantis is up so high. Luna Loki Mantis could be scary with a Phoenix though, I'm just saying. Finally, we have made it to the cream of the crop, the S tier characters that you should be playing whenever you get the chance, as they are significantly stronger than the rest of the cast and they rarely get banned. We're just gonna start off with Magneto, and it's gonna be the same thing I tell you every single video for this character. He's the only one on tank that really does what he does. The bubble nerf also doesn't hurt him nearly enough or just as much as we needed it to. He also has an ultimate capable of consistently taking out support ultimates, and just like Iron Man, a character that can take someone out of a support ultimate or force it at least very consistently is going to be a very strong character in ranked. The other thing too is that I swear Magneto doesn't get banned unless it's like a very niche situation where you have a Punisher player. So if you want want to climb, there is no reason for you to play anything other than mag. I promise you, if you want to play Vanguard, just put the mag in the bag. So next up in line, we have Hulk, who I think is arguably the best third tank in the game, but Groot also could be in that spot as well, depending on the situation. Gamma turrets for Namor on the flank are impossible to deal with as support. I'm telling you, I've played a lot off stream on my Luna Snow and, just support in general, and there's one thing I'm scared of, and it's Namor on the flank with a Gamma turret. Black Panther, not, maybe a little bit of a sweat, but Namor, I mean, I can't really do anything unless my Namor matches that. But let's bring our attention back to Hulk. He has great utility with the bubbles, and he can also isolate angles better than any other tank in the game. The problem is that Hulk is actually a pretty difficult character, and he does require you having a mag, or you're just gonna have a really hard time because you're not gonna have anyone to really hold the front line for you. Moving on, after Hulk, we do have Groot, who is extremely strong if Wolverine and Emma are banned. He has incredible setup potential with his ultimate. He has great damage for a tank with better range now as well. And people have been really sleeping on him because they're scared of Wolverine. But guys, Wolverine is permabanned. So you should definitely be playing Groot more. I don't know why he's gotten picked so much less in a lot of these elos. Transitioning though into the DPS, we have the character we've been talking about the entire video, Phoenix. Imagine if you could fly around the map and two-shot people pretty much whenever you wanted to. Also imagine that you have a stun and a slowing CC on your right click and an ultimate that can one-shot enemies through support ultimates with 2 marks and a simple damage boost from your own Luna Snow ultimate. You would probably be sitting there, if I pitched that idea to you in a meeting for Marvel Rivals, you'd probably be sitting there and be like, yo, dude, what drugs are you on? Because I low-key need some of that, because no one would be saying that just straight up. But this is just the reality of Phoenix. There are no weaknesses in her kit, and it is a marvel that she isn't banned every single game. See what I did there? Yeah, that was pretty bad. I mean, you guys can flame me in the comments for that one. But let's move on to the other DPS that you're going to be playing if you're not playing Phoenix. And that's going to be Namor and Psylocke that are in contention for who is that second best DPS. In my opinion, both are incredible on the off angle to start, and then they can return to their team in the mid fight once they get their value. It all just comes down to what matchups are on the board. Psylocke is really good at contesting Hela's and Punisher, but Namor is great at stopping the Psylocke from getting more after that. In ranked, it really comes down to preference and consistency. If you don't have a Hulk, then you play Psylocke. If you do, maybe you play the Namor there. Just play what you think you can get more done with depending on the map and what your team has. And, switching between those two characters, you can't really go wrong with that. Finally, for supports, we have the slept on GOAT. Coming back pretty much out of the woodwork here, it's going to be Loki here. With Luna Snow rarely actually getting banned, even though she really should be getting banned, Loki is still insane and arguably a must pick. The only time I'd play someone else is if I'm really struggling to split up my clones against an enemy. Phoenix, Hela, Black Panther, or a ton of other flyers are on their team, because it's really hard to deal with those. If I have flyers on my team, I should probably just be on Invisible Woman to begin with, since Johnny's the only super strong flyer in the game anyway, so that really takes out that whole, line of thinking for me. But then that just leaves Loki with being Loki. Not to mention Loki can make teammates invincible with the press of a button, and not a lot of other characters can do that other than Adam Warlock, and maybe he's pretty decent in triple support. I don't know yet. If Loki is too hard or it's not your cup of tea though, Cloak and Dagger is still just an insane character combo. The ultimate still charges pretty dang fast, and the flashbang is so valuable at the right time that I don't see a world where Cloak and Dagger is ever a bad pick. Obviously, I would rather have a Loki in the right situation, but a flashbang into a Punisher ultimate might be the most disgusting thing to pull off in the game, and it is a super easy combo to pull off too. And that closes out the entire list for season 3.5 in Marvel Rivals. Again, if you want the entire list updated from week to week, I have a specific channel for that in the Discord that I urge you to join if that is something you're interested in. You can get your value, play the good characters, and leave. That's totally fine with me. Thank you guys though for your support if you watched this whole thing, and if you have any questions, make sure to send them in the comments down below. But until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.